4:35 on April 19th, 2022. Called order the Budget, Finance, and Administration Committee meeting. Moment of silence, please. Mr. Root?
Yes, sir. Pray with me if you'd like to. Well, Father, we ask for your wisdom and insight this evening dealing with the budget. It's very important, obviously, a document that guides the policy of this county. So we pray for insight, wisdom, just beyond what we're capable of through you. You give us your guidance to make it work and work right. In your name I pray. Amen.
Is there a motion to approve the March 18th, 2022 budget workshop minutes?
Forget the pledge.
Oh,
Excuse me.
most important. Mr. Davis, will you lead us in the pledge?
Yeah, please do.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Davis.
Yes, sir. We've got a lot of things sitting in front of us today.
Okay, now, is there a motion to approve the March 18th, 2022 budget workshop minutes?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
The vote is 5-0, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay, so discussion items. Fiscal year 2022-2023 budget discussion and review. As the budget process continues, it's each councilman's responsibility to make an appointment with the county administrator to go over any budget line questions that the councilman has. Any Oconee County citizen that has budget line questions should make an appointment with the county administrator to go over those budget line questions. And Ms. Brock, before we start, our proposed budget increase should reflect growth in our tax base before reassessment. We will decrease the millage, negate the increased revenue due to the reassessment. Are we in agreement on that?
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Brock, if you would continue.
Good afternoon, Budget and Finance Administration Committee members of our audience. I believe we only have staff here. Thank them for coming. So again, we have created a budget document in line with the County Council strategic plan that we went through in February of this year and approved in March of this year. You have in front of you a new book. We did do them in 3-ring binders in the event that items needed to be changed, if there were amendments made to the budget, because our previous honeycombs were difficult to do that in. Included also in this year's budget for departmental and other expenditure pages, as requested by 2 citizens and members of council in the past. All line items are listed clearly in the left-hand column. These prints are a little bit smaller, so if there is a need or a request for us to reprint any of the pages in landscape, I believe that can be done efficiently. It may come out to be 2 pages. We hope that everything is clear, as you can see, on each of the expenditure pages. So we'll start on the first portion of your book. It is called the FY22-23 Budget Summary. It is one of 7 pages. I want to make sure everybody's on the same page before we get going. Please, as always, slow me down, stop me, ask questions, comments, etc. Undo my book here. And just as of a note, your books look quite differently from mine, and I want to just do a little demonstration here. This is what the budget began to look like. So we've already done a significant amount of cutting before we got it to you. And lots of data and information was collected. The data, I do have a question about that because I do have this folder on top. Mr. Durham addressing one of the dangling questions from the previous budget committee meeting. You had asked for specifically data related to the additional position at Shaw-Ram and the 3 positions for emergency services. I did provide that data to you all during the last council meeting, but that was a dangling one from the previous budget meeting. So if we would like to discuss that part up front before we get into the summary portion, I'm happy to do that. If not, and the data seems to be sufficient for us to move on with the requested positions, I'm happy to do that as well. Was the data sufficient enough? Okay. That data will be included in the backup documentation for the budget. Just want to make sure we're crystal clear on that one. So again, we did construct this year's annual budget for the third year in a row based on council initiatives. So on your first part of your book here, the pages 1 through 7, this is just the summary of expenditures and the revenues anticipated for the upcoming year. And Mr. Elliott, since you had mentioned previously that the budget was not to be built on any reassessment, I do want to make a note about reassessment. Reassessment typically is not a way for counties to realize new revenues. It should be, ideally, a way for us to evaluate current scenarios and the millage across the county and equalize that to form a more clear and as fair as possible baseline for tax expenditures. The equalization of the assessment value across the county can be reflected, say, if you had a specific neighborhood that had very little growth in the previous 10 years, but all of a sudden took off, that growth may be reflected as a higher rated value, where another neighborhood may be at a lower rated value. Where if we didn't do a reassessment, those two things would be in fact opposite of reality that the change in ownership or change in status of that neighborhood would reflect.
And let me clarify something, make sure I'm right. So according to law, you can't increase someone's property value more than 15%.
It does have a cap, correct.
15%?
It is a 15% cap.
There's a lot of rumors going around it's going to go up 50%, 60%, 100%.
I've heard quite a few rumors said the valuation amounts may go up, but the taxable amounts will be capped.
Right, tax rate.
Correct.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Brock, what year is the reassessment based off of?
It is reflected as of December 31st, 2019.
Thank you.
Which won't include all this inflation that we've had in the last 2 years.
No, sir, it does not. Now, you remember reassessed value is only on the value, well, I shouldn't say it's only on the value. So a reassessment is on the caps apply to properties that have not changed ownership or had capital additions or improvements on.
Right. If I buy a house right now, if it's assessed at the new market value that I paid for.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, also being part of the reassessment there in my first 4 years, when that came through, the idea of gathering additional tax revenue from reassessment was not there. And in fact, some vacant land had gone down. And so the increase of there, I guess when it's done every 5 years, is never extravagant based on everything I've ever looked at. It's always been a good view of, number one, our county's always stayed level. It's been, which is great. That's a good, because that doesn't happen across the board for those that follow other counties. So I see similar to this. We'll probably see some of the vacant land in the Cliffs area will probably improve a little bit because it was a lot lower when that last one came through. So, I think when this whole throwing out the fear of reassessment going crazy, I mean, if you look at the assessed value on your home, and I'll take mine for example, because my assessed value on my home's like $177,000. Now, if I got my home appraised, it better not appraise for $170,000. But I'm just saying, so we're very fair in the way our assessments are done, the reassessments are done. Obviously, it's not us. It doesn't have anything to do with any of us up here. But I also would like to appreciate the assessor's office and the tax office and everything they do, the suburbs office, when people come in and they have an appeal and all of this stuff on there for appeal and values and how well they handle that. And there's times to when, for example, I had a building that wasn't on mine that got put on there, and it happens from time to time. And I do want to make sure people pay attention to the reassessment to make sure that it is correct and the properties are, if you've got 20 acres, it's your 20 acres. And sometimes that can happen when you've got larger land areas. But they do a great job with that. The appeal process is very easy and simple when they walk you through that. If you feel like that reassessment value is wrong. So I just wanted to kind of point that out, that those offices do a great job at that. And it's very easy, very simple, and they'll walk you through that. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Ms.
I have
Bond?
a clarification and a correction. I was looking at a note here. The valuation for reassessment is December 31st, 2020. 2020. I apologize. I had a note here. I was looking at two numbers and said the latter of the two. And I believe we have one error on page 29. Apologize for that. It is in the treasurer's office, the number of staff. That correct number should be 7. In your departmental sheets, it is correct on that specific page.
What was the correct number
7.
for the treasurer's office?
Treasurer. I appreciate that moment of correction.
And on page 81 is the treasurer, and it is wrong.
Is the 7 the correction for 2023 or also for 2022?
It is correct for 2022 as well.
Okay.
Thank you for your question. So we'll go through the budget summary here. This should cover a majority of the things that we have previously discussed that were not voted on. Council did vote to direct us to move forward with the planning of the budget document from the previous budget committee meeting. And the items included in the book in front of you are inclusive of those recommendations and direction from council. So the operational cost by department, this is simply the cost to operate departments. Those increases department-wide for the general fund total $63,037. Some of the increases, and you can randomly flip through your departments, they are listed line by line, may be reflected in something small like a software upgrade. We know that we had some electricity upgrades, we had some uniform necessities. Those operational costs are simply operating expenses for the collective departments within the general fund budget. The salary and fringe cost, this is a makeup, so it's a little higher than it was 2 years ago because last year there was not a state requirement for counties to contribute for the retirement rate increase on the employer side due to COVID. So the $602,711 is a 2-year total technically, but it is being impacted in a 1 fiscal year from Oconee County. On the administrator's page in your budget, which is the first page after your, is page 32. The new position request, which if y'all want to go through those individually, we can. I believe that we have done that in our previous meeting and just clarified that we did have the backup information requested from the previous meeting for us to move forward with those. My book is not the same. Let's see. Thank you. I need bigger print, don't I? So again, just for clarification, I'm going to go through that new position request. There is a new position request for 1 code enforcement officer, 1 park ranger at Shaw Ram, 1 court clerk 2 in the clerk of court's office, 1 emergency dispatcher for the 911 communications center, 3 firefighter 1 positions, procurement 1 buyer position. The sheriff's office would be 3 new deputies, the conversion of 3 part-time positions, and the request for a part-time community outreach coordinator to be transitioned to the full-time community outreach coordinator. The PRT administration has 2 new positions, which are being paid for entirely by ATAX funds, which is your accommodations tax funds. So the necessity for the county to cover those expenditures just does not exist because those are covered by tourism dollars. If you'll see the chart at the bottom of the new position request, you'll see that the position requests are in line with council's strategic initiatives for the improvement of public safety at 65%, which is pretty closely reflective of our current population for staff in the county as a whole. The cost, the recreational funding increase, that one is also located in the administrator's division of the budget. This was the increase for the requested amount from $30,000 to $50,000 for the individual recreation districts. There are 5 in the county. The cost of living increase for all staff across the board other than 2 contract employees is also listed there. The share of salary adjustments. We didn't have a way to put those independently and individually in the sheriff's office because a lot of those salary adjustments would be dependent upon the 6% approval for cost of living increase. So that's why we listed everything in one department. So if there is a significant change in this budget, we would not be changing 40 pages. We would simply be changing 1 page so that that number would auto-populate back into our summary pages, which are a part of our comprehensive budget documents. The $250,000, I just want to put this out there as a reminder, was when the sheriff came and requested the entry salary for Deputy 1s to be a minimum of $40,000 and Deputy 2s to be $41,500. There will be compression created because of the increases from the lower level, so that we put an extra, was it $17,360, I believe, in that line item for there to be a way for the sheriff independently to fix the compression that would happen between the classes. So 2 years ago, Oconee County staff received merit increases. That merit increase did not reflect in our pay scale. So if you came to work here 2 years ago and you did not get the merit increase because you came after July 1, but then you did come last year and you got the cost of living increase, the person who had been here for 18 months was making the exact same as the person who had walked in the door because the cost of living increase raised the salary. So we want to give him just a little bit of extra wiggle room, and it's less than $20,000 for him to fix internalized compression. Now, I'd want to remind you all again that this is not simply for the Deputy 1s and Deputy 2s. The sheriff came and met with us this morning. This is also for your correctional officers in the detention center. It is 2 large departments, 2 of our largest departments, and we feel like this funding is necessary for him to reach the $40,000 minimum and the $41,500 for the Deputy 2 once they're certified. The one-time capital request, it appears on this document as a negative number. The negative number is reflective of the difference in the one-time capital expenditures that were approved in the current year's budget. The administrator's contingency is $37,238 less than current year reflects as well. Again, that contingency account is used countywide for unforeseeable expenses, insurance proceed matches if necessary, air conditioners, heating, water line replacements, leaking ceilings, you name it. Typically, it comes out of contingency because those aren't things that you can foresee. Any questions on the expenditure side for the increases? Yes, sir, Mr. Durham.
So this is, these positions, these increases is only captured under the administrative title, it's not later
Correct,
in?
until they're approved.
Okay.
Once we get past second reading, because typically we try not to have changes from second to third reading. Once we get past second reading, we will start distributing and populating those numbers for every single department. But as a whole, just for council input and review, it's so much simpler because this document it's auto-populates from page to page to page. So it's so much simpler if we make a change to make one change rather than on all 58 department pages. Because it does have an impact on the individual department, workman's comp, health insurance, dental insurance, et cetera, et cetera.
And did we get any additional, justification for the increase in rec funding?
I have not requested any. I'd be happy to request that for you. Mr. Davis, did you have any input on that?
Yeah, so if you, familiar with the rec departments, obviously the, cities, and, Fair Oak provide the majority of recreation around here. So, it's probably about 40%, interior, inside the city limit, kids, and 60% outside. So when we began discussion of this, I guess when we started originally, they were getting 10,000, and then every fifth year they would get 12,500. So the goal of this was to create an investment to where these recreations that were a little smaller, Fair Oak, Salem also being one of those, could make sure that they could continue to provide recreation for those areas. With the funding that we've added, these areas have all grown. Salem's got their highest numbers that they've had in quite some time, got teams that they haven't been able to put together because of budget issues. And across the board, Walhalla, Westminster, Fair Oak, Seneca, the amount of participation and the things that they've been able to provide, and not just from basketball and things like that, but other things that they're able to use the money for. Fair Oak uses it to maintain some of the facilities, pay for a director. Salem uses it for some of their community events and stuff that they've had in there. So this money will continue to make it actual cost of the cost that they have to charge those that are playing in recreation to keep that at an affordable level. So that's kind of what this comes into play. So it has definitely been a great asset to the cities, and not only that, them continuing to provide recreation instead of the county having to step in and provide it. It's a great revenue for the businesses in the county and the cities, which is why I've always been a big fan of keeping recreation within the cities.
So are they at risk of not being able to provide these programs now without this additional?
No, I would think if you look at the city's budget, the reason to put this is to help make an investment in recreation and investment in those youth programs. So instead of, if you want my personal opinion with that number should be well above that for what those communities provide for recreation. That's kind of what it was honestly embarrassing that it was $10,000 when I first came on. So as Mr. Hart's district, with what Fair Oak's continued to do down there and what we've actually done on their building, this will help them be able to establish solely as a organization instead of us kind of stepping in and having to pay for things here or there with the building.
Okay. I mean, you've talked about what they've done. I'd like to know what's the goal for the increased spending. Or maybe by the
To
next
provide
one.
recreation for youth.
Okay.
What is the
That's a
amount?
good general statement.
The additional amount, Mr. Hart, is $100,000 countywide.
So we're talking about 20,000 each of you?
It would be a total of 50,000 per district. Right now, we give 30,000 per district.
I mean, my advice to you would be to go sit down with Mr. Galbraith in Walhalla, which is your district, and ask him that question.
Yeah.
Because he would probably be able to tell you.
I'm sure all the districts will be willing to spend the money that's given to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Go ahead.
Okay, we're going to move on to the bottom section of that page, and this is entitled the revenue section. I don't want any of you to fall out of your chairs, but the property tax increase is $2.7 million. Well, I'm going to spell it out just for on the record, $2,706,119. As Mr. Elliott stated earlier, we are projecting to build this budget around growth and growth alone. After meeting with the assessor's office, multiple times and again today to solidify, we are conservatively estimating our growth factor to be about 3.5%. This budget is reflective of 3.27%, but in the event that there is a change in the growth from now until the auditor stands in front of you to set millage, we want to make sure that you understand that these estimates are conservative and that we are not using any baseline for reassessment as a way to gain revenue through other sources.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
It's not necessary for this discussion, but can we provide that information to the school district also about their budget and how much growth will be without the reassessment?
Yes, the school district
Yes.
staff does come meet with our staff, as do we, when creating a budget for presentation to council. I don't know the number that was given to them because I don't know the date. The number that we had looked at had been as high as 4.2. During the current year, we used, I believe, 3.2, and it turned out to be almost 4. But it's hard to estimate what your growth is. This is the month of April, and we don't get to setting millage and determining the value of a mill until September usually.
Right.
We work very closely with the auditor, and I spoke with her twice today already, because anytime we make any adjustment in the numbers that are in this budget document, we have to make sure that those numbers can be reflected and captured when that millage is set. We are being very conservative and very careful when creating this budget document for you. For informational purposes related to property taxes, in the front of your books is a pie chart. And this one I did print big because it is very difficult to see one line. Riley, you can come up and get a copy if you want. So this is a collection chart from where our real estate property taxes come from. So I want to make it clear for everyone that our collections come from multiple sources, one, and that we have 3 primary collection divisions. One is the owner-occupied residential, which is the royal blue on the far right between 1 and 3:30 p.m. At the 6% is the golden color. And then I want you to look at the darker green color that's about the 9 to 11:30. That is for your utilities. There is a utility here, a nuclear power utility, that we're very thankful for to have as a neighbor. But I really thought that you all would like to have this breakdown so that you could see that even a tax burden on citizens in Oconee County is equitably distributed and not solely based on the 4% homeowners here. And Mr. Elliott, to address again about the school district, their growth numbers are different because their revenues are from a different revenue stream. So their growth number may be similar to ours, but may not be exactly the same because they rely more heavily on the 6%.
Ms. Broad?
Yes, sir?
Hey, I see the pie chart and the percentages. On the column on the right-hand side with the percentages, what does that represent?
What is this reference here?
No, on the diagram, the pie chart with percentages and breakdown.
Yes,
And then it lists what it is on the right-hand side, but also percentages in parentheses.
Those are the same.
It's the tax rate.
Okay,
Yeah, so what's in parentheses here, so your owner-occupied residence is a 4% assessment.
thank you.
The agricultural, does that help?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. And these numbers are collected annually, the same as your incomes. And I think this is actually a great handout, Ms. Everett, I hope you don't mind, for millage presentation and recommendations as well, so that when you're looking at establishing and setting millage, you have a visual and the calculated numbers in front of you that have been sent and approved by the state for that. So our intergovernmental expenses from last year, again, anything in parentheses is a difference, is 26,869 less, while we do see an increase in license permits and fees of $627,350. Those primarily are coming from tipping fees and building heads. It does not appear that there's going to be any significant decrease, even with council's instruction of removing the fees from our small haulers for our tipping fees, as we've seen an increase of more than 11.5% in 1 year for tipping fees. And again, we are the only transfer station operable in a 60 to 80 mile radius. There is one in Anderson County, but it's in the lower southwestern corner of Anderson County, and just is not as easily to get to from Pickens County, which is closest to our eastern border. Charges for services, there's no difference whatsoever in the fines and forfeitures. Maybe I should put my glasses back on. Charges for services, we are seeing a slight increase there. Interest and investment income, we are seeing a decrease there. We are being, again, very conservative. Even though interest rates do appear to be on the rise, we do not anticipate that to be a revenue producer for us again this year. Miscellaneous and other, primarily the miscellaneous and other is coming from Oconee County's rebate from credit card uses. Our P-card program is allowed us to do more things digitized. In days past, when we would go to a place to purchase something, we would have a two-fold goldenrod and pink document. We would have to sign the document to say what we were buying. The person we were buying it from would have to sign it. We would have to bring it back and file a copy here and scan a copy there. We now have P-cards, and just so everyone knows, those P-cards are restricted up front from certain usages. So if I wanted to personally use the P-card for something that was not allowable for purchases by Oconee County, it would be declined upon being swiped.
Someone review and approve.
Sir, oh yes, we have a strict review and approve process. You will get flagged for purchasing anything, one, that is not in the budget, two, that is not from an authorized vendor for us to purchase
I've
from.
been in several companies where P-card is criminally used. I mean, I know it's restricted, but it might not be restricted to gasoline or things like that.
I don't think we've had any instance where we have identified fraud. And typically what we do is once we do, it's called per batch. So like every week when we get a batch in, we will have more than one person doing the evaluation and checking off on. Typically, a department head has to sign off before it even gets to a certain place, and then someone in procurement checks off, then someone in finance checks off, and then our auditors do a random review of all of our P-card purchases.
Okay, thank you.
And not every county employee has a P-card, just FYI. There are not 568 P-cards floating around in Oconee County. We had an instance last Thursday, I believe, where an employee needed to purchase something for Oconee County. And it never occurred to us that every employee would have a problem and not have a P-card. So we had to send another employee who did have a P-card to drive out to the rescue to make that purchase on his behalf. And the use of fund balance. During this current year, council did approve us the $500,000 to utilize fund balance for the construction of the Westminster Magistrates. So you'll see that $500,000 difference there. Are there any questions on the revenues? And these are summaries. I would like for you to take the time, come see me, bring breakfast, bring lunch, milkshakes, whatever. I mean, if y'all want to spend hours and hours together going over this, I certainly don't mind, and would encourage anybody who has any questions about this to either come and talk to me, or if they want to take this book home with them, they're welcome to read through all of our notes collectively. Just please keep it in the same order and bring it back as soon as possible. So on page 2 of 7.
Hang on a minute,
Yes, sir?
Mr. Chairman. On expenditures with that total increase, I would like to make sure, since we've gone through expenditures, revenues, did anybody have an issue with those expenditures? This is the budget meeting.
I got a question. Are you talking about we're gonna increase the budget by $3 million right now?
I'm talking about, like, do you have any issue with those expenditures that's been listed out? Because this is the same, we haven't added these, this was the same thing coming out of the last one. I'm asking, like, what is the concerns? Is there concerns on those expenditures, and what would y'all like, is there a recommendation to strike those or add to those as something in there? I'm just trying to make sure we go through this budget process correct.
I'd like to strike a lot, but I'll hold my powder till later.
Well, now's the time to do it, Mr. Hart.
Well, on this recreation fund, you're gonna give each one of them 20,000, and they getting 30,000 now. You just gonna bump them up almost half, again, almost double it. I mean, it would have been 60,000 instead of 50,000. Can't you slide into this easy, 10,000, and then maybe next year another 10,000? Well, just a thought, okay? I mean, we can think about it and do something later.
Any other comments, Mr. Hart?
No, that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So your page 2 for your general fund summary. This is a breakdown of the differences in the general fund. This is a summary. In your books, you do have individual pages that are dedicated to each one of the lines here. But this is the reason or explanation for the increase. So for, again, the property tax increase, which is $2,692,318. The primary reflections for this, and there may be minor ones that are not listed here, so I do encourage you to study those line items individually. But the 4 largest are, again, growth, vehicle taxes, fee in lieu of, and watercraft. So the watercraft, again, for the second year, we've seen an increase there. Intergovernmental is, again, a decrease of $26,869. Your license, permits, and fees, I just discussed those. The tipping fees, the register of deed filing fees, and building codes. It does not appear that building codes is slowing down. I don't know if you recall, but at the last Planning and Economic Development Committee meeting, Mr. James Coley, our planning director, did provide information regarding the new subdivision plan reviews that have been submitted, and there are more than a 50% increase in the last 2 years over the previous 3. So we are growing. Charges for services, we are looking at increase in park revenues and recyclables. Thank goodness recyclables have made a turn, and we are starting to see those plastics, number 1 and 2s, leaving the yard much quicker than previously. We had stockpiled them for a little while, hoping that this would happen, and it is finally happening, we're happy to say. Again, the $275,000 deduction for interest rates, and when I say deduction, I do mean over current year, not as a whole. Miscellaneous and other is the forfeited land commission and the miscellaneous divisions from the sheriff's office. Other financing sources, this is where the upcountry fiber and staff reimbursements for when we are reimbursed from the school district and solicitor's office. And now from ATAX for certain staff that are being paid for by other funds. And again, that use of fund balance that is not applicable for this year. If you look on page 3, and I'm not going to read this to you unless y'all would like me to go over these individually. This is simply a itemized list of the differences, whether that be, if it's a difference, it's in parentheses. If it's in addition to, it is not. There may be a reason listed out in that right-hand column. These, again, are just summaries. Each one of these items has a more itemized list of expenditures for the reflected department that's listed, and they are in alphabetical order in your book. I'll hit the highlights here. Again, the general government, and again, these are in the administrator's account, so it does look a little bit heavy on that administrator's page, but for the simplicity of the creation of a budget document, having the numbers in one place to auto-populate in several other locations simplifies the process and reduces the potential for us to make errors if we were calculating by department. So the 14 positions are listed here, the increase in rec funding, the 6% cost of living for every staff member, elected official, except for council and contract employees, and the salary adjustments throughout the sheriff's division are listed here at the top. From administrator to voter registration, you'll see that there are minor ups and downs. The largest increase that we saw here is the finance office at 36 and information technology. Both of these are related to cybersecurity, increased security for personnel files, financial files, and cybersecurity.
How much of that these two numbers is cybersecurity related?
For the cybersecurity, for information technology,
You said and finance, right?
well, those two departments combined, because what we've done is gotten more secure software. We're currently operating we just finished operating one, but there for a while, we were concurrently operating two different softwares to ensure that the new software, which is called Paylocity, would be able to handle the needs of Oconee County. But the cybersecurity for information technology alone, 78,000 for our switches and $60,000 for the additional software and hardware. There are some switches that will need to be purchased that come out of the small capital in there related to cybersecurity, but those are replacement pieces that we currently have, and they're not new or a new system that we're putting in. We're just building on the security of the system we already have.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. And then to 11,850, you'll see in facilities maintenance. That is not a one departmental cost. Facilities maintenance takes the kind responsibility of paying utilities for several other outlying county departments and offices, so that it's not just a one departmental reflected. Oconee County does own and maintain 780,000 square feet of buildings, so as you can imagine, inflation is impacting us too. We are so very lucky that we made it through the process with Johnson Controls for our energy and efficiency and lighting upgrade at the time that we did, because we would be looking at significant increases had not we been able to make that upgrade at that time. The other increase you're looking at is for voter registration and elections. I know that you all got to see the new voting machines, what was that, 2 years ago, when the new voting machines were brought in. Well, now that that contract is in place on that second year, we are required to pay for the normal and standard maintenance on those machines. And for the first time, the State Elections Commission has converted to e-books for polling, which is so much better. I don't know if you've ever been to a polling place and had to flip through all the pages for them to find your name to cast a vote. But there is some software upgrades in the voter registration division streaming down from the State Election Commission that will provide some efficiencies for our voters. Public safety, again, is one of the largest portions of Oconee County's budget, and we are happy and proud to say that our council and our citizens both support the law enforcement and public safety divisions of this county in a way that is reflected here in this budget. So animal control, building codes, communication, coroner, detention center, fire and emergency service, and the sheriff's division are all the departments that comprise the public safety division. The $218,000 in fire and emergency services, the sum of that is for the equipment for the 3 new firefighters, because typically we don't keep turnout gear or SBCA equipment for staff we don't have. So that part of that is a one-time capital upfront, which is the equipment needed for the 3 new positions, should those be approved. And then the other portion is for the lease payment on the $987,000 grant we was recently received in the large purchase for the air packs approved at the 2 council meetings ago, I believe. Are there any questions on this page? Anybody discussion? Yes, sir.
What's the additional cost captured for equipping the additional sheriff's department staff?
For the equipment and the sheriff's department staff, so the
Vehicle and,
vehicle equipment fund,
okay.
that is Fund 225. 325. I just make stuff up. Thank goodness she's here to tell me what fund it is. I get confused on the funds because we have so many new ones. So yes, all of the vehicles for the 3 additional deputies will come from the 325 fund, which is the capital vehicle replacement fund. And then the uniform costs for those you'll see reflected in the sheriff's office. So the uniform, safety equipment, when that may include their dress equipment, their $98,000 roughly per deputy. So those are one-time upfront costs as well. Now, the uniform costs typically are a revolving cost because they wear those uniforms on a daily basis. So we don't go purchase a large amount of uniforms and then say, oh, we're not going to buy any next year. But it is reflected in that departmental budget. But the vehicles are coming out of the special revenue. Any other questions or discussions on this page? Perfect. Moving on to transportation, public works, and culture and recreation. This is page 4 of 7. So we'll see a small decrease in the airport, a minor increase in roads and bridges, bringing transportation down roughly $11,000. Again, we are looking at growth in those special revenues for the road department. As previously discussed, we do have a revenue for the capital replacement for bridges and culverts, and then we have a road maintenance fund as well. In fact, later tonight, in front of you will be the annual paving contract for 18 miles of repaving in the county. Solid waste, we are anticipating an increase of roughly $548,670, again reflected in those tipping fees. We have not seen any sign whatsoever of there being a decrease in waste in Oconee County at our transfer station or our landfill. Culture recreation. This is the first year that we have been able to remove maintenance on building and grounds from the general fund and request that the ATAX dollars cover these expenses, primarily because it is through accommodations that the maintenance is required. So for each one of the county parks here, you will see a decrease in what we anticipate the building and grounds maintenance cost to be for those respective parks. And the $22,000 increase, which is a part-time staff for the library, which is also in that culture and recreation division. Judicial services encompasses the clerk of court, the magistrate's offices, probate court, the public defender, and solicitor's offices. Here we're basically expenditure neutral. A little bit of a decrease, $12,000, because there has been a decrease in court expenses for the magistrate court. Health and welfare, health and human services, the Department of Social Services, the health department, and the Veterans Affairs office. There has been an increase in Oconee support. Oconee support are those items that come in front of you, whether it be Boy Scouts, gravel donation, if it is in Oconee County and serves primarily Oconee County only, or not primarily, Oconee County only. We have had requests come through for, especially after the rains, for gravel request for the girls' camp, the boys' camp, things that serve specifically Oconee County. We do have several new nonprofits who have come to make requests that we will be bringing to council in the next several months for that. Your economic development, non-departmental. Oh, I'm sorry.
Mark's got a question.
I'm sorry.
On this clerk of court,
Yes, sir.
where is this one individual going that we're talking about hiring? I mean, are they going over to the big house, or are they gonna be here in this building?
The clerk of court,
Yeah,
Ms. Burton's request,
yeah,
that will be at the courthouse on
okay.
Main Street. So as we discussed in the previous budget meeting, the clerk of court is now responsible for setting and maintaining the docket for all general sessions. And that additional responsibility has warranted well enough the position. Family court cases are sadly on the rise as well. But yes, sir, that housed in the courthouse.
Okay.
Okay. Your economic development departmental cost, the difference in $11,025. Non-departmental, this is where years ago we lumped advertising together. We do have some decreases in what we anticipate to be postage because it is a reassessment year. The assessor's office postage may go up, but the county postage may go down. So we have been able to equalize some of those out. And the retiree stipend proceed, also in non-departmental, is down this year as our retirees are, the numbers have not increased for the stipend portion. The other financing uses, again, that was portion of the fund balance used in previous years. The debt service lease payments are approximately the same. And that concludes this page. Do we have any questions on these? Anything specifically you'd like to look at further?
Go ahead.
And remember, if you don't have questions now, we can always come back to it. So 5 and 6, again, I'm not going to go through these. They're in the exact same order. We're trying to make sure there is a certain amount of consistency when you're reviewing these things. So this is the salary cost, and this is for your general government. And I'll just say the totals per division of Oconee County government, if that's okay with y'all, rather than going through the line item by line item individually. So your general government, the total for the salary, and this does include the 6% cost of living in here. So it does break it out departmentally here. Mr. Durham, I think this may address the question you had earlier about that. The reason we didn't do it on the pages individually is because, again, they're tied back to a master document.
And Ms. Brock, this
Yes, sir.
includes the salary for the sheriff that we agreed to.
Yes,
Yes.
it is. Thank you.
This is exactly what's in the budget. We haven't, these numbers are pulled directly from these pages.
Where's the other one with the? Oh, I'm so sorry. Should have made a separate sheet for that. I should look at the books we make rather than the books I made. So these are the current, I apologize, page 7 of 7 is the departmental requested 6%. That didn't look right up front. So this is what is current, pages 5 and 6, and then page 7 would be the reflected amount. I thought that was the reflected amount, I apologize. And again, I'm going to go through these just as divisions of government if you'd like. So total general government, current cost is $90,549,513. Public safety, $17,989,913. Transportation, $3,035,802. Public works, $2,052,542. Culture and recreation, $2,483,496. Judicial services, $2,664,414. Health and welfare, $199,713. Economic development, $367,306. And that brings the total to $35,842,699. And then page 7 again is the requested 6% cost of living adjustment for all elected officials minus council and 2 contract employees. That concludes the summary portion of the budget information. I know that you all haven't had time to look through your books. Yes, sir, Mr. Durham?
So I see the page where we have the salary increase for the 6%, which is not included in the previous pages 5 through 6. So what makes these numbers different? Do they not match? the previous years? I mean, there's small deviations in each.
So your deviations here are changes of employee status. Could be retirements, could be new people coming on. So you'll see some departments, I'm just gonna pick one right off the top of the bat. For the assessor's office, there's a difference of 25,000. You had several people that had been here for years that retired, and then new staff come in that were not making that 25-year cumulative salary. So there is a reduction of salary and expenses in that certain department. Does that make sense?
It does. So what makes, some have, increases? I'd like to see human resources has increased by 64,000.
So the increase in human resource, if you'll look just above that, you'll see a decrease in the finance office of 38,317. We did have one retire, and then we moved a staff member from finance to the human resource office who was doing primarily human resource work, and it made more sense to have a division of responsibilities because typically you don't want your human resource person doing financial matters for payroll or personnel. So we physically and salary moved a person from the finance office to the human resource office. I'd be happy to go over any of these.
If I have
with you.
any other questions, I'll
Please do.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that the numbers on page 5 and 6 include fringe.
Yes, sir.
Whereas-
And the numbers on page 5 and 6, including the fringe, Mr. Kane, are also reflective of the increase for the state retirement for the county portion match.
Whereas not all of that is gonna be used on the 6, a lot of that's not gonna be used to
6% is salary only.
just salary,
Correct.
which is
So
page
this
7.
does include fringe on this document, and these numbers are reflective of the state required county side match increase and changes of employment status. Any other questions on the cost or salary fringe, cost of living?
I think as we have continued to see out there in the employment world, we were drastically behind, and I think it's a false sense that, you don't, our people deserve a living wage as well, and I think this has helped fill those jobs, and I know we've bumped up some of those jobs that we're having a hard time placing. So I think that'll help that as well. So definitely continue to be in favor of that. We're getting toward the right thing. Based on other counties of our size, we're getting where we should be, and that's also being competitive. We are offering some great benefits, but as if you've watched out there in the workplace, a lot of people are having to do the same thing. Not only are they increasing salaries, but offering additional benefits as well. So I'm definitely in favor of that 6% cost of living that we are adding this year, and we've continued to add over the last couple of years.
Any other comments or questions from Ms. Brock?
If I may, Mr. Chairman, just address the fact that we did, again, build the proposed budget document based on council's initiatives. These council initiatives, I know that you've already seen them and have seen them, but these are the things that we are trying to accomplish, and our goals have been reflected in their strategic plan in creating this budget. Any questions, any comment, please call, come see me, whatever. If you want to have the book, if there are other questions, if we need to have any further discussion at any time, please let me know.
We good? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Hold on.
Whoop. We're not good.
Well, so this is a budget meeting. All right, so we're in the middle of a budget meeting, and I don't want, as we continue to move forward with this process, there to go out and say that we're not doing something. So 5:45 is our cutoff date time, so we can get into our council meeting. So there was a thing said last year we didn't have enough time, so I just wanted to say before we go and cut this meeting short, there's 10 minutes, what I'm saying, for discussion. So if we want to have a discussion, let's have a discussion and talk about it. I did meet with Ms. Brock this morning about an hour and a half and went through things that I had and concerns that I had. That's the second time, and I know some other members have as well, so just want to make sure we're doing what somebody wants to do. As we've gone through and literally read each thing out loud. So that was my concern, Mr. Chairman. I'll cut the meeting short when we have 10 minutes right here.
Do you have any additional data for the rec department you can present now? Will you bring it, what's the next meeting, the 3rd? May 3rd, I believe?
May 3rd.
I mean, I met with the rec departments that I'm familiar with. They've used them for buildings, they've used them for field maintenance. They've used, I know in Westminster, they're trying to construct some additional soccer fields. They put up LED lights at Owens Field. They've redone the lights on the inside of the Cleveland Center and Westminster. Walla's redone some floors, redone several fields. I don't know what their intent would be with that. They don't, so, I mean, if it's.
Well, I'm sure you'll be glad to bring the information you gathered to the next
I mean,
meeting.
if it's me,
Well, you proposed it, I'm just
I
asking.
did propose it.
To
Yeah,
present it.
and I support it. You don't have to support it. If you don't support the recreation funding, don't support it. It's okay.
I'm just stating that we need to know what we're spending the money on before we spend it. Other departments have presented what it's gonna be used for, that's all I'm requesting.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to support it. It's okay. It's not a problem. I mean, I think it's already been stated that you don't support that additional rec funding, so just don't support it.
I've stated that I wanna know what it's gonna be used for. And you've
Well, I would
stated what
ask-
money has been spent for in the past.
I would ask your district person, which is Mr. Galbraith, what he plans to use that fund money on and how he has. And I'm sure, if you want me to, I'll tell you what, I'll call John tomorrow and I'll ask him what Walhalla Recreation plans to do with this
So
additional money.
you threw this money out there having no clue what it would be used for?
I didn't throw any money out there. I know what the money's being used for. It's
Okay,
being
then
used to
provide
support
what the
recreation.
additional
within the cities.
$100,000 would be used for.
Yeah, I will be glad to bring everything back
Thank
to
you.
how it has been used. I will call
Also, the
Mr. John
additional,
Galbraith.
not past monies, additional justification.
Be glad to.
Thank you.
Do we need to go through any more lines, line by lines here, Mr. Chair? Mr. Durham, Mr. Hart, line by line, we got time. I want to hear any, we didn't have time. I mean, I agree with Mr. Davis, there was a lot of that after the fact. We didn't have time, council members didn't allow for time. We're sitting here in a budget committee meeting.
Mr. Kane, I've been up here for 5 years, and I never seen you disagree with Mr. Davis.
7 times. I'll bring that information too.
7 times?
Yep,
I know one.
I'll bring the other 6. Since y'all want some information.
Wait a minute. She's bringing a double and you bringing the others.
I'm bringing a shovel, Mr. Hart. We'll have to talk about the double off the record. I make one
Recreation.
request, I'm so sorry.
Yes.
Please go ahead, Mr. Kane.
I was just gonna say, recreation funding is what Mr. Durham is requesting more information on, not stating you're opposed to it, just stating you want more information, but there's no additional information requested as of today with the budgets being presented.
I believe all the other information has been provided.
Speaking of other,
We
Mr.
good to adjourn? No more questions? Right.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Votes 5-0.
Thank you.